This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
So, we've laid out the laws. We've exposed how schools dodge their reporting responsibilities. But here's the part that really kicks you in the gut. There's no real barriers stopping a teacher, one with internal complaints, serious allegations, even whispers of predatory behavior, from packing up and moving on to the next district like nothing ever happened. Because nothing ever did, if it never made it to the authorities, at least not on paper. That's where the system gets dangerous by design, because there is no national tracking system, no shared misconduct database, no required disclosure across state lines. If an educator resigns before formal charges are filed, their past doesn't follow them. It's erased. Paperwork gets sealed. Files get labeled personnel only. And the next district, they get a clean resume and a smile. It's like watching a firework factory shove a faulty batch out the back door before OSHA shows up. We know these might explode on children who are lighting them, but it's money. It's product. Maybe that's the problem. We've seen this with Andrew McGann, who spent the past few years teaching in multiple states, always for short stints, always leaving quietly, then ending up in Arkansas and executing 2 parents on a trail the week before he was supposed to start teaching. The trail of red flags never made it past the school walls. No one reported him. No one warned the next district. So, of course, no one knew who they were hiring. The only reason we're talking about him is now because 2 people ended up dead on the hiking trail. In this next part, I'm going to ask Eric Faddis the question a lot of parents are asking. How the hell are there no safeguards in place to stop this from happening? We're digging into the hiring process, what information schools are allowed to ask, what they're allowed to share, and how the legal gray zone turns into a blank slate for predators to reinvent themselves again and again. Let's get into it. There's no national database for teachers. There's no national database that says this person has a red flag or questions. I mean, there obviously is the S offender registry that's out there, but nothing for teachers. And an S offender registry doesn't cover just allegations. It doesn't cover allegations at all, actually. It covers things that have been convicted, where someone has actually violated the law sees it that way, it went through the court system, and it did it that. If there's found to be unfounded reports or accusations made and the person's found not guilty, guess what? They're not on the registry. So I get why you wouldn't just put every allegation up there on a registry. People lie. People make things up, especially you get to manipulative, more high school type years. You're going to have that sort of crap happening. That's why there needs to be more protections here in place. It seems not only for the districts, but the teachers themselves. So they're not put into the corner and someone says, this person said this to me, or this person took me over here. Why don't we have anything else like that in place in our country to prevent that? Again, I go back to body cams. The idea of a camera in a classroom, cool. I think they should have that too. But why not that? That seems to be like, if you're interacting with a student in any way, shape, or form on that job, have that thing on. Period. It doesn't. I think that would solve it. And I think you'd get a lot of predators out, just voluntarily leaving, knowing that they're going to be on camera. Why don't we have anything like that in place?
There is certainly gaining momentum for teachers wearing body cams and other types of objective measures like that that can document exactly what happened. Because like you said, there's a lot of he said, she said stuff going on. I've got good friends who are teachers, and, they don't want to be subject to some false allegation and then have that logged somewhere and be, blacklisted from ever getting a teaching job again, especially if it was unsubstantiated, especially if it didn't happen. And there are also privacy concerns. I've talked to teachers who say, look, I didn't sign up to have a camera follow me around every day of my life when I'm at work. And so that's a legitimate question to talk about too. That being said, we're talking about the safety of children. And sometimes when you're in an industry that has those sensitive issues where children need to be protected and are sometimes at risk, sometimes there's privacy that needs to be given up for that greater good. And that's why that idea of teachers wearing body cams is, I think, gaining support.
And I agree. I said it earlier when we were talking about the McGann case, where maybe, and people don't like this idea, like maybe some rights just do need to be given up. That if you truly want safety and change, you're just going to have to do it. Just like putting on a seatbelt prevents you from flying out the windshield should you collide with something. It restricts your freedom a bit, but you know what? A couple, little bit in, you're like, oh, okay, this makes more sense. Why not? I mean, it just seems like this just might be part of the territory. Body cams are, with many departments, required for their officers. At one point it wasn't either. So there was plenty of officers on a force that said, I don't want that. Well, tough shit. It's part of the job. It is what it is. It's to protect you. It's to protect them. If there's anybody who seems to have a problem with it, I question what your problem truly is. Is it just privacy? I mean, what are you doing that's so scarily private in that workday that you'd really not want someone else to see about it? That doesn't seem to add up very well when you're working with children. It's just kind of like, you're going to work with kids. Guess what? You're going to be monitored. That's how it works. We don't have carte blanche like, I guess maybe we do, honestly. There is kind of carte blanche for a teacher to say, why don't you stay in with me over lunch this week during recess and we'll talk. And there's plenty of wonderful teachers who do that are helping children get ahead and do the right thing. But there's also many that don't. Have a camera, problem solved. What is the responsibility here, though, of like state licensing boards and such in tracking disciplinary records of students, pulling certifications, things of that nature, should they see trends of misbehavior, of possibly predatory behavior towards a student, but they can't necessarily get it down to that legal sense? They don't have cameras. It's just a trend of accusations that are coming in from different students. I mean, what sort of authority do they have to do much if there isn't any sort of legal intervention from the local authorities if an accusation like that is made, or if it's left unfounded? Can they do anything? Can they put anything on that record?
I think it varies by jurisdiction, and the schools have significant discretion when there is no substantiated claim of neglect or abuse. Another problem is that there's no uniform legal standard across the country for how the schools should deal with this when these situations arise. Something the way a school deals with it in Mississippi might be different than the way a school deals with it in California. And on top of that, like you said, there's no kind of legal database where if a teacher moves states, how is that new state going to learn about prior accusations, especially if they're not adequately recorded, not adequately reported, not adequately investigated? They're not. And we're going to have this issue continue to recur if we don't put measures in place to have that transparency of information and have it be available to receiving states for folks who have received allegations against them.
I know there's probably some teachers watching right now also going, yeah, but what about the union? Because that adds another legal layer to the onion that the school districts have to please. I mean, what role do those unions play? I mean, are they protecting bad actors under the guise of due process and tenure and all those fun things that seem to keep really bad actors in their place?
It certainly depends on who you ask. If you ask the union folks, they're saying, hey, we're the champions of the teachers. We're protecting their privacy. We're protecting their legal rights. You're not going to, have somebody, their name be defamed and slandered for something they didn't do. We're going to go to bat for those folks. And that's all well and good. But what about when there is a credible accusation against a teacher? The union in those circumstances doesn't say, oh, well, we're going to cut that person free and you can do with them what you will. That's not how unions work. And that's not really the union's legal obligation. And so there is sort of this this infighting and this different interests sort of coming into play and butting heads against one another. And there are important interests on both sides. And so the legal system, I think, is still struggling to really adjudicate how those things happen and try to serve the best interests of everybody involved. You often can't do it.
It's wild, isn't it? The same school that requires fingerprinting to chaperone a field trip can turn around and hire a full-time elementary teacher without ever being told that he is registered or resigned, rather, under suspicion of I'm going to redo that intro. In 3, 2, 1. It's wild, isn't it? The same school that requires fingerprinting a parent to chaperone a field trip can turn around and hire a full-time elementary teacher without ever being told that he resigned under suspicion of predatory behavior 3 districts ago. We're not talking about a system with cracks. We're talking about one made of wet paper and wishful thinking. Eric just walked us through the mechanics of this disaster. They're not centralized, and there is no centralized accountability, no flag that follows a resignation, no legal obligation to warn the next district. And the kicker, in many cases, schools aren't even allowed to share that information unless it rises to the level of a formal complaint. And since most of it never does, we get guys like McGann bouncing from school to school. Clean on paper, known problem off the record. This is the real-world cost of policies that value image over safety, where HR redacts the truth, where legal departments play defense instead of prevention, where do no harm becomes don't rock the boat. And it leads to tragedy, almost all the time. So now that we've unpacked how predators stay in motion under the radar, we're heading into our final segment with Eric on this subject to talk about what actually needs to change. Because we can keep exposing the holes in the system, but unless lawmakers, you, school boards, and the public get serious about sealing them, it's just a matter of time before the next one slips through. Solutions, accountability. Let's talk about all of that. That's coming up in our next segment with Eric. Don't miss it. Press subscribe right now. Wherever you're listening to this or watching, if it's on YouTube, search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski to find us there, or do that same search on the podcast platforms so you don't miss any of it. Press subscribe, and in the comment section on YouTube, tell me what your thoughts are. What are your solutions to this problem? This only gets fixed if you give a damn. So if you got kids, you might want to give a damn. Because this is a real problem. And if you think it's only happening in other districts and not yours, I can almost guarantee you got one past piece of trash in your district. You probably got a can full, actually. So be aware and start making your voice heard. Until next time, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.